that Mr. Wilson is your 3-year-old son, Jashawn's biological father, because he wants to live the single life. Say you have more evidence than this court has ever seen before. Cheated on you numerous times.
Pictures with me. He shared a picture like this. I thought he was very cute.
You had never met?
No, we never met before. And when he got off the bus, I seen this. No, I did not expect this getting off the bus. No. I wanted to see this, but I got this.
No. Lies. All the way around. We made it happen, and then bam.
Oh, yeah.
Bam, you made a baby?
Yeah,
bam, we made a baby.
Yeah, kind of ratchet at the same time.
When you say kind of ratchet, she sleeps around?
Yes.
Jashawn's father?
100% sure. Why would I want to claim him as my baby daddy?
So wait.
She walked into the courtroom carrying years of confusion, anger, and unanswered questions. She was young when this all began, still trying to understand adulthood herself, and now she stood there as a mother asking for one simple truth. She said she was completely sure about who her child's father was. There was no hesitation in her voice. According to her, the man she brought to court was the only possible father of her 3-year-old son. She said any doubt coming from him was not about facts, but about his desire to live freely, without responsibility. She believed he was running from fatherhood, not from the truth. The man standing across from her told a very different story. He said he was not avoiding responsibility. He was asking for proof. He claimed he had more evidence than the court had ever seen to show that the woman had been unfaithful during their relationship. In his mind, the relationship was messy, unstable, and full of betrayal. Because of that, he said there was no way he could accept the child as his without scientific certainty. Their relationship, as she described it, began online. They started talking casually, sharing messages and pictures. He presented himself as caring and supportive, someone who promised to take care of her and her child from a previous relationship. To her, those words mattered. She believed them. She felt chosen. When they finally decided to meet in person, her excitement turned into shock. She felt he had misrepresented himself online. The person who stepped off the bus looked nothing like the man she had imagined. In that moment, doubt entered her heart, but she didn't walk away. She stayed. She said they made it work anyway, and not long after, she became pregnant. The man admitted they were intimate. He did not deny that, but he painted her character in harsh terms, suggesting she was involved with multiple people and that he could not trust her word. He said messages from others and things he saw on her phone made him believe she was seeing other men around the same time. He admitted that after feeling hurt and betrayed, he also began cheating himself. What started as emotional pain turned into reckless behavior on both sides. When the child was born, everything became even more complicated. The man said he was not present at the hospital. He claimed he was not properly informed when she went into labor. She insisted that she did call him, that her mother even spoke to him, and that he gave excuses about not having a ride. From her perspective, he chose not to come. From his perspective, he felt pushed away and excluded. His name was not placed on the birth certificate. The child did not carry his last name. These details became symbols of mistrust for both of them. Years passed. The child grew older. The man admitted he had not been involved in the child's life. He said part of the reason was doubt, and part of it was the belief that the child did not even look like him. The woman, hurt and frustrated, said she had done everything on her own. She said she didn't disappear to hide anything. She disappeared because she was emotionally exhausted and felt unsupported. She said she eventually came back because she wanted her son to know his father, even if their relationship as adults was broken. When the DNA results were finally read aloud, the room changed. The uncertainty ended in a single sentence. The test confirmed that he was the biological father. In that moment, all the arguments, accusations, and excuses collapsed into silence. He said he got the clarity he needed, but clarity did not erase the past. The judge reminded him that knowing the truth was only the beginning. A child had grown up without him, and that loss could not be laughed away or explained later. But this was only one story brought before the court that day. Another woman stood up with a different kind of pain. She had lost her husband, and while grieving, she met someone online. 2 weeks after being intimate, she found out she was pregnant. She was certain about who the father was. The man she named, however, completely denied it. He said there was no way the child was his. He questioned her character, her choices, and even claimed his own health issues made it unlikely for him to conceive a child. He admitted they had sex on the first day they met, and admitted they did not use protection. Still, he argued that her lifestyle and the presence of other men meant the baby could not be his. The woman explained dates, timelines, and medical estimates. She even brought a calendar showing when conception likely happened. Under questioning, she admitted she had been intimate with another man a few days later. That admission complicated everything. The second man, the one she was currently living with, entered the courtroom. He had been there throughout the pregnancy. He had taken her to doctor appointments, helped during medical complications, and cared for the baby after birth. He said he loved the child and believed the baby was his. Despite that, he had chosen not to sign the birth certificate until the truth was known. His actions showed commitment, but biology still needed to speak. The courtroom became tense as emotions spilled out. Accusations flew. Pain surfaced. Pride clashed with responsibility. Each adult spoke from a place of hurt, fear, or defensiveness, while the Bobbies at the center of these cases remained silent, unaware of the battles being fought over their identities. When the DNA results were revealed, the truth once again cut through everything. The biological father was confirmed, and the room reacted instantly. Relief, shock, and regret all appeared at once. The judge reminded everyone that stepping up late was still better than never stepping up at all. What mattered most was not winning an argument, but protecting the future of a child who did not ask to be born into confusion. These stories were not about drama for entertainment. They were about real people, real mistakes, and real consequences. Behind every accusation was fear. Behind every denial was insecurity. And behind every test result was a child waiting for stability, love, and honesty. The courtroom did not quiet down after the results. Instead, it felt heavier. The truth had spoken, but truth does not immediately heal damage done over years. The judge looked at the parents and reminded them that a child's understanding of love begins long before words. Absence, inconsistency, and anger all leave marks just as deep as care and affection. The father stood there processing what the paper in front of him meant. He was no longer a man with doubts. He was a father with responsibility. Whether he was ready or not, that title now belonged to him. The mother held her child close, her emotions layered and complicated. She felt vindicated because she had told the truth all along, but she was also exhausted. Years of defending herself, of being judged and doubted, had taken a toll. She didn't celebrate. She didn't smile. She just wanted her child to finally have what she had been asking for since the beginning: acknowledgement. The judge encouraged both parents to put the past aside and focus on what came next. Co-parenting would not be easy, but it was necessary. The child deserved stability, not silence. As that family left the courtroom, another took their place, carrying a different kind of grief. This time, the story began with loss. A young woman explained that she had been married, that she had loved deeply, and that her husband had passed away. In her loneliness, she searched for connection and comfort online. She said she was vulnerable when she met the man she believed to be her child's father. He presented himself as kind, religious, and responsible. She trusted him. They were intimate shortly after meeting, and within weeks, she discovered she was pregnant. She said that when she told him, his behavior changed. He questioned everything. He accused her of being irresponsible and promiscuous, even though he admitted they had not used protection. He said he had done nothing for the baby because he did not believe the child was his. He spoke about her choices as if they erased his own role in the situation. The judge listened carefully, stopping him often to challenge his logic. She reminded him that responsibility does not disappear simply because someone feels uncomfortable with the outcome. The man tried to defend himself by bringing up his health, saying his chances of conceiving were low. He also pointed to other men in her life, insisting that she must have been intimate with someone else immediately after him. When the judge pressed the woman for honesty, she admitted that she did have sex with another man a few days later. She did not deny it. Her voice trembled as she explained that she was scared, confused, and trying to survive emotionally after her loss. She insisted, however, that based on medical timelines, she believed the first man was the father. Then the other man entered the courtroom. He was calm but emotional. He said he had been there when the baby was born early, when the baby struggled to breathe, when the baby stayed in intensive care. He described sleepless nights, hospital visits, and fear that he might lose the child. He said he fed the mother, washed her clothes, took care of her swollen feet, and made sure she made it to her appointments. He said he loved the baby, regardless of biology, but he wanted the truth so the child would one day know where he came from. The tension in the room grew. Two men stood on opposite sides of the same child's life. One had doubts and distance. The other had presence and commitment. The judge made it clear that biology mattered in court, but love and responsibility mattered in life. She asked each man what he would do if the test confirmed or denied paternity. One promised to step up fully if the child was his. The other said he would continue caring for the baby, even if the results went against him, because the bond was already there. When the results were read, the courtroom reacted instantly. The biological father was confirmed. Shock crossed some faces. Relief crossed others. The man who had doubted stood silent, absorbing what that meant. The man who had been raising the child nodded slowly, accepting the truth with grace. The judge addressed them directly, reminding them that a child can have many forms of support, but clarity is essential. Competition helps no one. Cooperation was now required. As the cases continued, another young mother stepped forward, this time with her own mother beside her. She explained that she had been only 16 when she became pregnant. She said the man she believed to be the father had since died. Now, she faced his mother, a woman who firmly believed her son was not the father of the child. The grandmother said her son had been in a committed relationship with someone else, and that she had never heard of the young mother until after his death. To her, the claim felt suspicious, especially because life insurance benefits were involved. The young mother described years of struggle. She talked about finishing school while raising a child, about feeling isolated, about watching her daughter grow without knowing half of her identity. She said she wasn't chasing money. She was chasing truth. She wanted her child to know where she came from and to have access to her family history. Her mother supported her, saying she had watched her daughter sacrifice her youth to raise a child with dignity. The grandmother listened with crossed arms, grief hardening her heart. She said she had already lost her son, and now felt like she was being asked to accept a lie on top of that loss. She feared being taken advantage of. The judge acknowledged her pain, explaining that grief often builds walls, but truth has a way of breaking them down gently or forcefully. Evidence was presented. Timelines were discussed. The judge asked direct questions, carefully separating emotion from fact. She reminded everyone that the child did not choose these circumstances. The child did not benefit from secrecy, denial, or anger. Only truth could give her peace in the future. When the results were finally revealed, the courtroom once again held its breath. The science spoke clearly. The child was connected to the family she had been standing in front of all along. Tears fell. Some were of relief, some were of regret. The grandmother's expression softened, her grief mixing with acceptance. The judge spoke gently, telling her that honoring her son's legacy meant embracing the child he left behind, not pushing her away. As each family left the courtroom, the same lesson echoed again and again. These cases were not just about DNA. They were about accountability. They were about the consequences of choices made in moments of passion, loneliness, anger, and fear. And above all, they were about children who deserved honesty more than excuses. Every person who walked into that courtroom carried their own version of the truth. Some clung to it, some ran from it. But in the end, truth always arrived, quietly and undeniably, leaving behind one unavoidable question for every adult involved. Now that you know, what kind of parent will you choose to be? This is part 2 complete. When you're ready, say the word and I'll continue with the final 1,500 words in the same tone and flow. The courtroom had seen enough arguments to last a lifetime, but what stayed behind after each case was not noise, it was silence. The kind of silence that forces people to sit with the truth once there is nowhere left to hide. The judge looked at the parents one last time and reminded them that the court could decide biology, but it could not force love, maturity, or responsibility. Those things had to be chosen every single day, long after the cameras were gone and the audience had moved on. For the fathers who had denied, doubted, or delayed, the results brought relief mixed with shame. Relief because the question was finally answered. Shame because time had been lost. Time that could never be given back to a child who had already learned how to live without them. The judge made it clear that stepping up late did not erase the years of absence, but it could still change the future. A child does not measure love by perfect timing. A child measures love by presence. For the mothers, the truth brought validation but not victory. None of them looked satisfied. They looked tired. Years of carrying emotional weight alone had hardened them in ways they never expected. They had learned how to survive without help, how to protect their children without support, and how to keep going even when they were doubted, judged, and blamed. Standing in court did not feel like winning. It felt like finally being believed. One mother clutched her child tightly as the judge spoke. She had spent years explaining herself, defending her choices, and trying to prove she was not lying. She had been called names, accused of chasing money, and painted as irresponsible. Yet the DNA results confirmed what she had said from the beginning. Still, her voice cracked when she spoke. Not because she was angry, but because she was relieved that her child would no longer grow up with unanswered questions about who his father was. Another mother listened quietly as the judge addressed both men in her child's life. One man shared biology. The other shared memories. The judge reminded them that a child's heart is not divided by court orders. A child remembers who showed up when they were sick, who held them when they cried, who stayed awake at night when fear took over. Biology opened a door, but love had already been living inside the house. The man who had raised the child from the beginning nodded slowly. He had hoped, but he had also prepared himself for disappointment. When the results confirmed he was not the biological father, he did not walk away. He did not shout. He simply said that he would still be there, because walking away now would punish a child who had already bonded with him. The judge praised that choice, reminding the courtroom that being a father is more than DNA. It is consistency, sacrifice, and showing up even when it hurts. The biological father stood silently, realizing that stepping into this child's life meant stepping into a story that had already begun without him. He understood that trust would not come easily. He understood that apologies would not erase absence. But he also understood that the chance to be present now was a gift, not a guarantee. The judge urged him not to waste it. Then there was the grandmother, still grieving her son. When the results confirmed that the child standing before her was indeed her granddaughter, her posture changed. The anger faded into something softer. Grief had built walls around her heart, but truth quietly walked through them. The judge spoke gently, reminding her that honoring her son did not mean denying his child. It meant embracing her. It meant allowing love to continue where life had ended. The young mother watched closely, unsure what would happen next. She had spent years feeling invisible, raising her daughter while facing whispers and suspicion. She never wanted sympathy. She wanted recognition. When the grandmother finally acknowledged the child, tears fell freely. Not because money was secured, not because a legal battle was won, but because her daughter would no longer be erased from a family she belonged to. The judge reminded everyone that these cases were not rare. They were reflections of modern relationships shaped by technology, loneliness, impulse, and fear of commitment. People met quickly, bonded emotionally before truly knowing each other, and made life-altering decisions in moments of vulnerability. When consequences arrived, denial often felt easier than accountability. She spoke directly to the parents, saying that children are not mistakes. They are outcomes. Outcomes of choices, circumstances, and moments where responsibility was ignored or embraced. No child should grow up paying the emotional debt of adult decisions. It was time for the adults to carry that weight instead. As the courtroom slowly emptied, each family carried something different with them. Some carried relief. Some carried regret. Some carried hope mixed with fear. But all of them carried truth. And truth, once revealed, demands action. Outside the courtroom, life would continue. Bills would still need to be paid. Schedules would still clash. Old wounds would still ache. Co-parenting would bring new arguments and new compromises. Trust would take time, and forgiveness would not come easily. But at least the children would no longer live in uncertainty. The judge's final words echoed long after the doors closed. She said that children do not ask to be born into chaos, but they often are. What defines a parent is not how the child arrived, but how the parent responds once the child is here. Running from responsibility does not erase it. Ignoring truth does not change it. Only action does. For some, that action would mean showing up consistently for the first time. For others, it would mean learning to share space with someone they once hurt or resented. For some grandparents, it would mean opening their hearts again after loss. For some mothers, it would mean finally accepting help after years of doing everything alone. These stories did not end in the courtroom. They only turned a page. The real work would begin at home, in quiet moments without an audience, where patience would be tested and promises would either be kept or broken. The court could order child support, visitation, and paperwork, but it could not order love. Love had to be chosen. And somewhere in all of this, the children would grow. They would ask questions one day. They would wonder why things happened the way they did. When that day came, the answers they received would matter. Not just the facts, but the honesty behind them. Because in the end, every child deserves the same thing. Not perfect parents. Not perfect circumstances. Just adults who are brave enough to tell the truth, strong enough to take responsibility, and mature enough to put a child's needs above their own pride. That is what the courtroom tried to teach, and whether the lesson would be learned was no longer up to the judge. It was up to the people who walked out those doors carrying the truth in their hands.